Here's everything you need to know about the vacancy rate. If you're in the market for buying a brand new property, then you've probably come across the term vacancy rate. But what is it? How does it work? And what does it mean for investors? Let me explain. The vacancy rate is a statistics that's used to measure the number of untenanted properties that are on the market at any one point in time. It's usually expressed as a percentage and is calculated by dividing the number of properties that are available for rent right now on the market by the total number of properties for rent. Let me give you an example. Assume that there was a total of 1,000 properties in a suburb that could be available for rent. And at this point in time, 50 of those properties are marked as available for rent. 50 over 1,000 is 5%. Hence, the vacancy rate in that suburb would be 5%. So why do investors, and tenants for that matter, need to care about vacancy rates? Well, let's consider what a very low vacancy rate means. You see, weekly rents are normally set based on supply and demand, and the vacancy rate is one of the best barometers in market for measuring the balance between that supply and demand. So, a low vacancy rate means there are a few properties available for rent, which means there'll be a lot more competition amongst renters for those properties, which puts the power in the hands of the landlords, and therefore means that they can probably, if the property's in good condition, charge even more rent because there's less available space to rent. This is exactly what we're seeing in Australia right now, and why there is such upward pressure on rentals right around the country. Now, if vacancy rates stay low for some time, this can also have an upward pressure on property prices. Why? Because if the vacancy rates are low, that means there's a lot of competition, which means landlords can normally lift rents, which mean rental yields lift, which means the investment class, apartments or properties, becomes more attractive to investors. More demand means normally upward pressure on pricing. And what about a high vacancy rate? Well, a high vacancy rate means that there are a lot of properties for rent, and this means that tenants have a lot more choice. And if high rates persist for a long time, this can also place downward pressure on rental prices. But this is not what we're seeing in Australia right now. So what's a good rate? Well, theoretically, economists used to predict that a good rate was around about 3%, but that was a couple of years ago. Right now, a lot of suburbs in Australia are trending down to a 1% vacancy rate. So most commentators believe that 2% is around about a neutral rate based on supply and demand. Like or share for more videos and tips.